we're gonna take a look at and play another Sega 32X game that was unreleased. It likely would have been my favorite 32X game. So don't go anywhere, it's gonna be a good one. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Layman Video Gamer. I am Scott Galaxy, and today we have, like I said, a really cool episode. It's another unreleased or canceled game. This one is for the Sega 32X. The 32X is one of my, I don't know why I like it so much, but it's one of my pride and joys. I really love that system. Add-on system, whatever you want to call it. It's a much maligned system that didn't do very well, and as many of you know, I've collected the entire 32X library, and you know, I'm just a big Sega fan at heart, so this one hurts because it didn't do very well. The system didn't do very well, but now that I have the entire library, it's just one of those things where I go back and I find myself playing it more than I probably would have even back then. So I really do like the 32X system, more so the potential. But just because I've collected the entire library doesn't mean I stopped collecting for it. In fact, I have been on kind of a binge lately of collecting unreleased or canceled Sega 32X games. And that brings us to today's game, which is Soulstar-X. Now, I am a huge Soulstar fan, created by Core, the developer, and it is one of my top Sega CD games of all time. It is just one of those games that really pushed the limits of Sega CD, which is something that Core did quite often. They were kind of that go-to developer who you knew when they released a game that it was going to be good. And the Soulstar-X version they were creating for the 32X would have been no different. So let's pop it in and take a look. So, had everything gone to plan, the Sega 32X version of Soulstar would have been released in 1995. And it was even previewed in a number of gaming publications back then, as early as 1994. But, as we all know, the 32X was discontinued in 1995, and Core was not going to be creating a game or finishing a game that was basically for a dead system. So it just never got completed. Now, lucky for us, they did finish the first and third stages of the game. So enough so that we are able to play it and kind of just see what the potential was for Soulstar on 32X. So like I said, the Sega CD version is obviously an incredible game. Tons of scaling and CD quality sound. The 32X version would have taken that color palette and made it look glorious. Now, unless this eventually became a Sega 32X CD game, the audio would have taken a slight hit, but even so, it still could have been pretty darn good. Now, of course, the best way to judge what this looks like compared to the Sega CD is to put them side by side and see what the differences are. So let's take a look. As you can see, the most notable differences are, for one, the ships. The 32X ship looks slightly different, and it isn't fully animated like the engines on the Sega CD version. And there are clearly more stars in the background of the 32X version, while the Sega CD version has extra items such as the floating space station you see here. The overlay of the ship's shields and energy gauges are very different. Again, it's hard to tell if this layout would have made it to the final 32X version when it was all said and done, but it is what it is right now. There's also a score tally at the bottom of the 32X version, which is non-existent in the Sega CD version, so I suppose that it's possible that points could have created maybe extra ships, or I don't know, who knows. And audio-wise, as I mentioned, you know, it's hard to beat CD quality sound of the Sega CD version, but this 32X version is serviceable. One thing they both do share, though, is that the controls are both really, really tight. So it's nice that Quark kept that intact. But overall, you can see it would have been a pretty nice game. They got enough done here to where you kind of got an idea of what it could have looked like. I would have loved to have seen what the final version of this 32X port would have looked like. And my guess is it would have looked pretty darn good. But I guess we will never know. So there you have it. That is Soulstar-X on the Sega 32X. I would love to hear your thoughts on the game. Is it something that you would have been interested in? If you had the Sega CD version, would you buy the 32X version? Did you have the Sega CD version? What did you think of that game? And I'd be fascinated to see if anybody else has this game. Speaking of which, if you really do want to get yourself a hard copy, which is kind of my thing, you can go find it. I think I found mine on Etsy. It probably costs somewhere between $45 and $55, somewhere in there, but just go check Etsy. There's probably other places, maybe eBay, you can find it too. But again, if you want the hard copy version, go check it out. And just expect to spend, you know, like I said, 45, 55 bucks on that particular game. So that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you like what you saw, please hit that subscribe button. Stick around, check out the other videos that I have here, and hopefully you can enjoy those. Leave comments on those as well. And I will see you on the next episode. Until then, I'm Scott Galaxy.